This debate is brought to you by the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights. My name is Iguma Gabriel. We have invited universities from all over Uganda to come and debate, to come and share ideas, arguments, and they will all try to convince you, the viewer at home, the audience that we have in the auditorium today, but most importantly, the judges who will be giving them marks. Today is not about making noise, but it's about who has the facts, who has the details, who has the current information. We hope you enjoy this debate, but also that you learn more about human rights. Welcome to the show. I am going to invite the two universities that are going to contest in our first show, and that is Makerere University Business School and then Kyambogo University. The motion is: a terrorist once captured should not be entitled to human rights. You have our contestants for the day. Let the judges tell us what they will be looking for in today's debate.
Today's debate, we are going to be focused on a few guidelines, and one of them is adherence to guidelines, which I'm going to read below. And each category will be carrying 20 points to our people. Eloquence is very key. Verbal expression and non-verbal communication is also very key. Skills in argument, that one will also be considered. And also the content. How do you address the topic? How do you address the theme? And do you have facts and law? How do you refer to some law books and the recommendations put in place? Lastly, audience engagement and your response. How do you respond to questions raised from the audience? That's what we are going to be focusing on while judging. And other items, awards. However, we are so eager to actually come up with the best also female and also the best male presenter today.
All right, thank you very much. Let me introduce my judges for today, Sandra Mwesije. Next to Sandra, I have Eli Kasirie, the one who just spoke, and finally, Deborah Oyela, our judges for the day that the contestants will be trying to convince. Our contestants, it's time for you to introduce yourselves. I will start with my extreme right.
I am Philip Dewey, representing Makerere University Business School and proposing the motion. Thank you.
I'm Atora Jocelyn, representing MUBS Makerere University Business School, and I'm going to propose the motion.
All right, I'll go to my extreme left.
Ayeba Dalton Joseph, and I'm representing Kyambogo University.
My name is Mohoz Nelson Mandela, representing Kyambogo University, and we are opposing the motion.
All right, thank you very much. You know your judges, you know the teams that are going to debate today. Let's begin this debate right now. Human rights are rights that accrue to everybody by virtue of them being human. Human rights in Uganda are guaranteed, provided for in the Constitution in Chapter 4. However, a terrorist is usually referred to as a person who violates another person's human rights. So when a terrorist is captured, should they be entitled to their human rights? Today we discuss, a terrorist once captured should not be entitled to human rights like the right to a fair trial. Let's go to the first proposers from Makerere University Business School.
Thank you so much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to say that terrorism cannot be accepted. We must fight it together, though with methods that do not compromise our respect for the rule of law and human rights or need to be used as an excuse. Reference to that statement, I would like to quote the Constitution, Chapter 4, Article 44. And it states, notwithstanding anything in this Constitution, there shall be no derogation. And I'll repeat, derogation. Derogation meaning that cannot be taken away from the enjoyment of the following rights: from torture, cruel, inhumane, or degrading treatment or punishment, freedom from slavery, the right to hearing. The right to hearing, and finally, the right to trial, that is legally dubbed as habeas corpus, the right to be taken in front of a judge for trial. Now, a terrorist is a person, they're an individual. The fact that they have violated the law by using extremist acts to express their feelings in society does not exempt them as human beings that still deserve that law. And above all, our constitution at the national level protects that right and says these are rights that cannot be taken away. And for me, these really mark my opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to stand by that, and I would say that any terrorist that chooses to commit, or any individual even in this room that chooses to engage themselves in terrorist acts still deserves to go for a trial, and when found guilty, shall be punished according to the law. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's hear the opposing view on the same.
Thank you very much. I think in the beginning, today's proposition actually opposes, because he wants to grant, he's entitling the human rights. And this is what we are here to do as opposition. At the end of the 19th century, we see acts of terrorism beginning in Russia to get rid of the Tsarist regime. And several revolutionaries rise up and form extreme organizations whose major intention would be to kill, to injure, to cause harm, because they believed that through doing that, then they would be going against, or they would be showing their grievances to the responsible personnel. That forming the foundation of terrorism, we see it in the nihilist people, who think also that by killing, that by causing harm to human life, they would be achieving what they want. The leader of the nihilist is also quoted as saying that their actions will not only be spoken, but will be put to practice. And that would be through killing, that would be through assassinations of individuals. That is the way they believed they would achieve their human rights. Today, terrorism has gone, or we have seen it in the whole world. We have seen them in Kenya, 2013. We saw them in Uganda in 2010. We see them in Somalia every day. Actually, they come up and claim responsibility. And now, today's opposition is saying, however much this is wrong, we still need to grant these people a fair trial. Why? Because even if we decide that we do not give them a fair trial, the question shall be, if we are not giving them a fair trial, what are we putting in place? And will it be a solution? If today we are forced to believe that law is not what we shall use, is not a weapon that we shall bring to commit or to put in place justice, what do we believe in? What will we put in place to make sure that these people actually face justice? Another thing also, as our major opinion today, the question of whether we should grant them human rights or not is a question of whether they are human or whether they deserve human rights. The fact that he has killed does not mean that he's not a human, and therefore they are not entitled to their human rights. Personally, they have rights that they are entitled to, for example, a right of fair hearing and also a right to thrive.
Thank you very much. Ordinarily, the two sides should be asking themselves questions at this point, but I would like to be the one to ask a question to Moobs. Our motion today says a terrorist once captured should not be entitled to human rights. Should not be entitled. And you are proposing this motion. Therefore, you agree with this motion that they should not be entitled to human rights. Do you want to restate your opening argument?
Yes, I would like to. And in response to your question, which is very, very, very essential to this debate, I should say it was a misconception. I did not really hear the way you stated it. I actually heard it the other way, that a terrorist once captured should, not shouldn't be. But either way, I will still get back to it. Now, in the Constitution, when I quoted Article 44, one of the things it does not state, and this is why, and I'll say, Uganda is a retentionist country when we talk about human rights. And one of the things that the Constitution does not state as a degradable right is the right to life. Yeah, the right to life. And if I quote from the Terrorist Act, Terrorist Act 2002 of the Constitution, it says, once called as a terrorist, the punishment shall be, and shall be, death penalty for you. So for me, I don't think then there should be a question around fair trial, because if a country that has exemptions of issues to do with the right to life, which then the UN says is a non-degradable right. But for us, it is an exemption when you're a terrorist and when you're brought to trial or not brought to trial, either way, that is degradable there, and then it is exempted. So clearly, we're at the verge of this country where we are saying terrorists take away many lives. I mean, I want to recall 2010. Oh God, I lost 74, and part of those were my relatives. I lost a sister. Very, very disheartening. Now, a person like that who chooses to take somebody else's life, should they be still granted trial when they chose to use forceful, and then violating measures and methods of taking away life? No. So I will still say and go back. The Constitution does not provide for the right to life. And because it does not provide for the right to life, and Uganda being a retentionist country, when we talk about human rights, we can still take the exemption and challenge the Constitution that anyone captured and taken for having engaged in any terrorist attacks should not have a fair trial.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now hear from the second proposition debater.
Thank you so much. Yeah, as well defined, terrorism is the use of violence and threats to intimidate, especially for political purposes. As we all know, terrorism is not a good thing. It's bad. You all know what happened in Kenya. That was 2013. At the West Gate. Many people lost their lives, and it was uncertain that some Ugandans were also there. So now, as the motion is stated, that a terrorist once captured shouldn't be entitled to a fair trial, right? Yeah, according to the principles or guidelines,
Which principles and guidelines?
Of terrorism.
All right.
Yeah. Regardless of the nationality, all individuals must have effectiveness to justice. It is reasonable that everyone who asks justice should do justice. And here, terrorism can never be accepted.
Have you wrapped up your argument?
Not yet.
Okay. Your time is running.
That's all.
So that's your argument?
Yeah.
All right. We'll go to the second opposition argument.
Thank you very much. As the motion clearly states, and first and foremost, quoting from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, it is clear and placed that all human beings are entitled to a right to live. Secondly, all human beings are entitled to live a life free of torture. Now, even when the motion is clear that terrorists should be, once captured, may be sentenced to a death penalty, it is unbecoming. Why? we should not look at the fact that terrorism is only being looked at from the surface point of view. We should also go beyond and see the reasons why terrorists emerge. And we have seen lots of terrorists that actually they are not the leaders in our states or the countries. They are young people, people that have been marginalized, and they are poor people. That means that the greatest chances are that they have been influenced. We have seen in many cases that terrorists come because of religious extremists. Now, this does not just happen in the blue. It means that these young people are captured, trained even when they are still young, and these bad motives are instilled in them. So while they carry out the terrorism, they believe that what they are doing is wrong, but it is not their major motives as the terrorists. Therefore, we state that once these terrorists are captured, it should not be calmly that they're not supposed to be listened to or even tried. We say they should be tried, they should be listened to because they have that right as a human being. And more so, we are talking about human rights and defending human rights. Every human is entitled to free trial. That one is clearly stipulated. Now, there are very many conventions, about 15, that have been brought by the United Nations, to fight anti-terrorism. And these legislations against terrorism are actually, they propose that the terrorists, irrespective of the extreme crimes they have committed, they should be tried. Because how shall we know who is guilty unless we try them? Therefore, we stand to say that even when they are regarded as, I don't know what extreme term to use, but we should regard them even inhuman, but they are still human. The fact that different ideas have been imparted in them and they are behaving differently from the way other humans being behave does not exclude them from the human rights. Therefore, we say that even when they are terrorists, they still deserve a right to be tried, and justice needs to be availed to them. Thank you very much.
One of the premises of your argument is that many of these terrorists are indoctrinated, and therefore they are not their own ideas, somebody else has indoctrinated them. What happens if you catch the terrorist who indoctrinated? Do these rights still apply to that terrorist, the one indoctrinating other terrorists?
We still stand to say that even the leaders of these terrorists stand a chance to be tried. Why? There is no human being that is born evil. All these things are trained after birth. Therefore, we cannot entirely place all the blame on them. But we must go on further and be also human, because if we are to exterminate these very persons' lives, we are also acting in terror.
All right, thank you very much. All right, you say that terrorists should not be entitled to human rights once captured.
Exactly.
At what point do they stop being human beings? Because if human rights accrue to every human being, at what point did the terrorists stop being a human being?
Okay, so I would like to go to that from a different angle. And I would like to again use the law. Now, we've had exemptions in this country, and I've always mentioned, and I want to use our country because this is very practical, that we're a retentionist country when we talk about our legal background as a country. And we do not provide for the right to life, which is internationally non-degradable. And clearly, the motion states...
Uganda does not provide for the right to life.
It states, and it gives you 4 non-degradable rights. And I can record for you here. And we can quote chapter 4. And the 4 non-degradable rights in Uganda: the right to hearing, the right to habeas corpus, which is the right to be taken in front of a judge, the right for slavery, and freedom from torture. It does not give you that the right to life is non-degradable.
All right.
In the Constitution. So yes, they stopped being human the time they turned violent. We must be ruthless in our endeavors to execute and do away with terrorism and extremism. And clearly, I'm using that background, the legal background, to really draw a line. But also like to draw another line, that there's a big difference between what we call a fair trial and being brought in front of a judge. Because when you're brought in front of a judge, they can really sentence, and this is what happens. They sentence you to a death penalty, which is clear. And my brothers are saying a fair trial. So what the law provides for is habeas corpus, which is the right for you to be taken in front of the judge. We do not, and will still will not, provide for you to have a fair trial because you've taken away so many lives. And we must be ruthless, and we'll still continue to demonstrate that as a country.
All right. Do you have any questions for the proposers of this motion?
I have one.
Yes.
Today's proposition seems to tell us that extreme violence doesn't deserve a fair trial, but rather ruthlessness. And what I would want to ask you is, according to the Rome Statute, which actually puts in place the ICC, people who have committed war crimes, people who have committed crimes against humanity, people who have committed genocide, I don't have to tell you how many people have died in these, deserve a fair hearing. What makes you think that someone who has killed 200 people doesn't deserve a fair hearing?
Okay, that is a good one. Now, I like the fact that when the UN Human Rights Commission in 2012 brought recommendations to Uganda and said part of the things they suggested that we do away with the death penalty, and this is under the human rights. We wrote 4 notable verbals, and we were rejecting those recommendations. Now, as a country, I'll go back to this. As a country, we have our beliefs and norms. The beliefs that the founding fathers put up as we were starting this country. And one of those beliefs is the belief to be ruthless in our endeavors in protecting the citizens of this nation. And if it means, I know for a moment in life, it does not appeal to the principle of intellectualism or the respect that you dub as human rights. But shall we sit back in this endeavor and let more people die as on our watch, as we talk about buying time for fair trial? Or shall we be ruthless to demonstrate what it means to execute extremism in this country?
All right, you now have a chance to ask the opposers a question.
So clearly, I would like for you to draw a line for me on what grounds in the Constitution that allow for a fair trial for a terrorist.
Thank you very much. Are there proposals? From the start, I stated what the Universal Declaration of Human Rights believes in. And I stated 2 points. And one was that every human being deserves a right to life. Now, if the denial for the fair trial is going to deny these terrorists' life, then it clearly opposes their belief. 2, that every human being deserves to live free from torture. That is clearly stipulated in the Human Rights Declaration, and Uganda is part of that convention.
Okay. His question was specific about the laws of Uganda, the Constitution in particular. Does the Constitution guarantee the right to life for a terrorist? That was the question.
Yes, the Constitution does allow and gives a guarantee for a right to life.
Please quote.
And the defense is, we have seen very many life sentences that have been given to different people that have committed atrocities. Now, and it means even when they have done terrible acts that are against humanity. So that one clearly shows us that even in the Uganda Constitution, we have an allowance for these terrorists to live.
Please quote for me that article of the
Can
Constitution.
I just add a voice on what he has said?
Very quickly. You have 30
Thank you
seconds.
very much. Today's motion for us as opposition is to prove that actually terrorists deserve human rights. We might be or might not be able to tell you that the Constitution of Uganda provides for this, but you very well know that the Constitution of Uganda actually talks about the human rights. One of them is the right to life. So I think here the issue here should be, are they actually supposed to have the human rights or they aren't?
All right, thank you very much. You've had the arguments from both sides. It's now in the hands of the judges. Let's hear what the judges have got to say.
Thank you very much, moderator, and debaters. Well done. And I want to encourage my female colleague to have more confidence, yeah? When you're up there, you should use it. You're all on the same level. Equality is very important. Now, what I wanted to add on was, if you look at the topic, how it was stated, fair trial, I want to differentiate it from fair hearing. Fair hearing is when you're in court. Fair trial is the whole process from arrest. I mean, and you're detained, or maybe you've been judged that you've committed an offense. Fair trial still shows it's alleged that you have committed an offense. Presumption of innocence until you are tried. So fair trial is the whole process. Fair hearing is when you're in court. So if you're saying a terrorist should not have fair trial, how would you know that he did it? He committed an offense or he did not commit an offense? So fair trial is very important to determine that someone is actually a terrorist or not. Thank you very much.
As my colleague already mentioned, we had certain points we are looking out for in our evaluation. And we have to give the debate to Kyambogo. They were overwhelming in their in hitting the marks of what we're looking for. They followed the topic as closely as possible. They were more articulate. They maintained eye contact. They brought out their ideas quite well. They addressed the topic, and they gave persuasive responses to the questions by the other side. Moobs was let down by, we didn't hear very much from the female debater, which was unfortunate because she was the only lady on the panel. And they were off topic at first. So that was their challenge. I would also want to clarify on Article 22 of the 22(1) of the Constitution guarantees a right to life. And it says no person shall be deprived of life intentionally except in execution of a sentence passed in a fair trial by a court of competent jurisdiction. So just because there was some confusion about that.
Thank you very much, our judges. You have heard Makerere University Business School. Thank you very much for your participation, and congratulations to Kyambogo University, which means that you make it to the next round. Please join us for the next episode to see which team joins Kyambogo University to go to the semi-finals. My name is Iguma Gabriel, and human rights can never be taken away. Protect them. God bless you.